Wanted to give a kind of an update. I've been wearing these for a day. So these are the Cognac Horse Rump Truman's. They are 11 double E versus, sorry, 11 and a half double E versus 11 and a half single D. Sorry, D, double E. They don't do a single E, which is what I was going to get to, that I think that would probably be my preferred size, but they don't offer that kind of last. So what I'm noticing wearing these, and I can actually show you compared, I brought out my natural Cypress pair. There's a lot more, obviously it's a different last, those are the 20 lasts, and you can kind of see some of this. You know what, let's pull these up to each other. You could see there's kind of a difference. Soles aren't the same either, so I guess that's not an exact, what shall we say, comparison. You know, it's not like for like, but, you know, keep in mind that they recommend the same sizing for these two lasts, so. But this is the Eugene Regrind, obviously being flat, and this is the gum commando, so it's not really the same thing. Anyway, you could tell if you just look at these how, I'll just lift this one up so it's a little bit more comparable. The toes are quite different. That has much more vertical volume, and this is a little bit of a flatter toe. And then it's exaggerated because of the sizing difference here. So these are a D, like I said, 11.5 D versus 11.5 double E. It's significantly wider ball and toe. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about real quickly. These, I would say, I mean, if I was going to say pure comfort, not necessarily a better fit, these are more comfortable. There's just none of the kind of the issues I have. Sliding my foot into that pair is problematic because even when I unlace it and open it up, it just seems like it's tighter, whatever, shaft ball, or not, sorry, shaft instep area on this pair is just kind of generally tighter, and it's, I slide my foot in, the top of my sock jams on the top of their kind of poor design where they stitch the tongue as like a straight line instead of that kind of horseshoe thing that you see P&W brands like Nick's and White's and Frank's, everyone else does. JK probably does it too. That's kind of a problem. Viberg, I think, does the straight line thing, but I don't something wrong with that pair where it just doesn't really, or with the, whatever, Truman's pattern, it doesn't really work, you know, work very well for me at least. This pair, with it having so much more volume, it wasn't an issue. I'm able to slide my foot in very well, and it doesn't kind of catch where that stitch of the tongue to the vamp is. So that was one thing I noticed. And then with such a significantly bigger toe ball area, I don't really have any big toe push at all. So like my big toe might be just touching slightly. I kind of feel it when I wore them. I wore these Friday, and it's a couple days ago. And it's weird because I feel like my foot doesn't feel as secure because it's so big and because there's so much extra volume here. But at the same time, it was more comfortable. So for like a kind of casual, maybe this is like what those gym greens, someone was talking about that in one of my comments, and it's funny because I'd been thinking the same thing looking at my feet all day. Like I'll throw up this photo I took when I was waiting to pick up some pizza Friday night, and it's like these look almost like, in my mind I was thinking gym green because it's such a freaking wide toe box. It's huge. Maybe this is what wide feet guys always look at, but it just seemed odd. I mean, way wider looking than, you know, Iron Rangers. People call those, you know, clown shoes. I never felt that they looked that strange. This seems extremely wide. It is a double E, so that's probably why. But I'm curious now. I'm not going to buy another Truman, but I wonder how the 79 would fit in the same 11.5 D as this 20 last boot, because maybe it's just maybe it's a wider last. It's wider and flatter. Maybe it's more 55-ish compared to 11067. 11067 is a little bit tighter in the ball, but then has much more vertical room. It could be what's going on here. Like they're doing sort of a same concept. I don't know. But, you know, 2 purchases from them with neither fitting very well. I just can't see myself buying again. And you probably saw my short because somehow it blew up, but these tongues are 8-ounce leather tongues on this pair. I should measure how thick they were in this pair because they were pretty thick too. These don't look as thick, so maybe this is a 6-ounce tongue in this natural Cypress pair, but it is pretty beefy. It kind of felt a little silly, but there's something about this pair. And honestly, looking at them now, I think this pair, it's not quite as thick. So this one actually looks more reasonable. And this one, so maybe that's more of a knock against Truman. They're inconsistent. This tongue is ridiculous. You can see this is the one I posted the short about. This is an 8-ounce leather tongue. So this is as thick as the shafts. Maybe thicker, who knows? It's just ludicrous. But I will say, looking at this while I was just kind of focusing on the tongue, this Gallum or whatever, Cognac horse rump is freaking amazing leather. So, you know, give Truman that. This is a very pretty boot. I really like their huge heel stay or whatever. I talked about this, I think, on another one of my videos. It seems like Nicks, when you get the two-piece, where you have a heel counter or counter cover or whatever, the Nicks two-piece, the heel counter part is so small. It's like the bottom of your heel. And I prefer the single piece because the single piece from Nicks ends up more like this, where it goes up higher. Truman, at least, and Frank's looks similar to this. They size the heel counter properly. So their heel counter, I would say, is a superior setup than Nicks. And White's is pretty similar to Nicks too. I noticed this, and I don't think I made the connection with this pair, but I was always kind of wondering why it was kind of bulging around here, and it finally clicked when I was dealing with this Cognac pair. This bulge, let me move this out of the way. This bulge right here is caused by the super thick gusseted tongue, and it rolls over and it just sticks out, and then it looks kind of weird. And obviously with this pair, it's just as bad or worse. I cut it on the inside because it was, I mean, legit, I could see it bulging out, and it was making, you can still feel it a little bit right there, but it was pushing out so much. The pull-up was being, when I'd wear them, you could see the light part of the pull-up where it was being pushed out by the roll of the gusset. So I cut out a lot of the gusset. I moved it down, probably in the result, down one whole eyelet, I think. But I basically had to get it at whatever I'm spacing what this is called on the side of your foot, where it sticks out right here. This was jamming into it, and it was super painful to walk around. And I was like, this is unacceptable, and that's why I cut it down. And I don't know, they need to split down their tongues. This is nonsense to have it that thick. But you could see here, again, from that thick rolled gusset, look at that kind of unsightly, like, I don't know, it just looks weird. I really like what's going on here with the horse rump, because the quarters don't have to get stretched for lasting. This pattern is really neat. I don't know what they call that. Almost, I don't know. Almost looks like scales or something. I don't know. I was thinking like alligator scales or something. But that's super neat. That texture is awesome. So this is a very cool leather, and it's not too bad. I mean, it's hard. It's a horse. Everyone said that. You know, this is my first horse rump boots. It's definitely like a harder, but it makes me think of kind of like Wickett and Craig's leather, where it has like a kind of a hard outer, but it's still flexible, if that makes any sense. Versus something like this, where they're just generally softer. This is the Cypress. This is kind of like a harder outer shell, but it's still flexible. But they're pretty comfortable. The sole seems very nice. Actually rained Friday, which was really abnormal for August. And I mean, it wasn't a lot of rain, but you know, seems like they have good traction in the wet. It's cool looking sole, the Eugene Regrind. Has all these little flecks. I don't know if it's like recycled stuff from other rubbers or something, but it's neat. And these smell really nice. This Gallum or whatever, horse rump, has a good smell. These stains were there when I unboxed them. I definitely had some water drips on them. Like I said, it was raining lightly and then nothing seemed to stain it. So unless I just don't see it because there's some stuff going on, but they don't seem super, they're not like hypersensitive to water stains. Look at that, man, that's amazing. Look at how that looks. All this grain or whatever the hell that is. It looks super cool. And I'm glad, I mean, the picture online, because these were seconds, I assumed was the actual pair. I really like how the vamp, because it got stretched, the pull-up kind of made it lighter. It almost has like this two-tone vibe, where this looks like one thing and this looks like a different leather. I know some people could think that's probably ugly, but I thought it was really cool. It reminds me a lot of not at all the same thing, but I have a pair of, I actually wore them the other day and posted a quick short. Some guy was like, how many boots do you have? You have a new boot every day. I bought those Wolverines like 5 years ago, but they have a rough out vamp and then smooth quarters, and there's no heel counter on those, just the backstay or whatever, and it kind of gives it like a two-tone vibe, and these kind of have that going. So they're cool. Just don't think the size is right, but the D isn't right either, at least in this 20 last. Let me do this. I really wanted to show kind of these two next to each other so you really can see the difference. It's a significantly wider toe. This double E versus this D is a lot wider. So yeah, anyway, these are not returnable, which I knew going into it. You know, they very clearly say that when you buy the seconds. They had a description that said, you know, this is a new boot. It's just like a custom order, never been worn or something like that. But if you look at their seconds, they typically tell you, which is good that they do. I'll give them that. Their site's smart where they tell you the problem. Because I was looking at a seconds mock toe in the black oiled rough out or whatever they call it, because it was a 20 last mock toe. I thought that was neat, but they specifically said the mock toe stitching was not correct or something, or slightly off, like, and to me that's like a complete, like that's a no-go, non-starter. Every time I've seen a Nix where the mock stitching is screwed up, or that Red Wing 8775 I had a few years ago that I sold, that posted a short about, where they're inconsistent boot to boot, the mock stitching was different. I just, you know, I can't do it. You just look down at your feet and it looks like you're wearing two different shoes, and it's terrible. So I do appreciate how Truman will tell you on their site like what's going on in this pair. They weren't saying there was like a defect for it to be a seconds. It was more, it's a custom boot and a custom size, and so I knew I couldn't return them. I think they'll work. Like I said, I wore them with a, well, I don't know if I mentioned it in my post, but I think I did. I wore them with a thicker cotton sock. I can also try my Darn Tough medium boot sock, which is probably one of the thickest socks I have. But those seem to take up a bit of the most of, I would say, that extra room in the ball. Yeah, I think they'll work. Might end up trying a insole to wear them with more normal, like a normal sock instead of a thicker sock, but we'll see. But you know, I'll give them a shake. They're generous, so maybe they're kind of for more casual comfort, you know. But walking around, I didn't go too far, but it seemed fine. And you know, I dig the leather. So they're just like I guess a little bit too big, but the D's kind of sort of too tight. So yeah, maybe Truman needs to offer a single E, but I don't think they're gonna do that. I don't think a 12D would necessarily solve things either, because I might get too long, but maybe it would. I don't know. Maybe the 20 last and a 12D would have been better than 11.5D, but I definitely would not probably think, based off how this fits, I guess I'd say I don't think an 11.5 double E 20 last would have been ideal. Even if it is not as wide of a boot as this, I think it might be still probably too wide. So anyway, I figured I'd just share that, you know, kind of a quick rundown. And then if you've never seen these two side by side, this is the 20 last. That's the 79. These are slightly different makeups with the single piece backstay versus a 2-piece, and a different sole, but otherwise their patterns similar. The stitching is a little different. I'm not sure if that was just that year one-off or what, because you typically do see this style stitch with a little bar tack type thing. And then yeah, that's about it. Cheers.